Thank you very much. Jai Radha Madhava Punya Bihari.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, bro. So you can start with it.
Okay, you can put on the slides. We are going to chapter lesson 4. You can share the slides. Om Gyana Timiridasya Gyanan Gyana Salakaya Chakshuramalitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Mano Bistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuttapada Kamalam Sri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Ragunastam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakam Vitamscha Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Tirtha Swami Iti Namini Namaste Krishna Padaya Prabhupada Ashri Tatmane Shri Gaura Karuna Shakti Bhakti Tetra Iti Namini Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namini Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvise Sasuyavadi Pasachadi Satarini Vanchakopatarvyascha Kripa Sindhumyayivacha Patitanam Pavinibhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namini Gauratize Namaha Nityanando Vatutendo Vasudha Pranavalabaha Janavir Jivita Pati Krishna Prema Pada Prabhu Padmavati Sutta Srimam Sachirananda Pravajaha Bhavam Mata Jagat Rakta Rakta Gora Chale Varaha Advaitam Harina Dvaita Acharyam Bhakti Shamshanat Bhaktamataram Itam Sham Advaita Acharya Ashraye Panchatattvamakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Sarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakti Shantikam Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha Nama Pankajanabaya Nama Pankajamaline Nama Pankajanetraya Namaste Pankajagraye Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopita Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute
Take a
Jayata
road to the farm that
Pango Mama Madirgatin Masarvaswa Padam Bhujo Radha Mandana Mohano Nivya Vindaranya Kalpadrumada Srimad Ranadgara Simhaskanos Srina Govinda Deva Christiani Sevya Manusmarami Srimam Rasarambi Vamsimata Tatastita Karusan Venuswanai Gopi Gopinata Sriye Stunaha Tamta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Bindavanishwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Devi Krishnamai Prokta Radhika Paradevata Sarva Lakshmi Mai Sarvam Kanti Samohini Paraha Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadha Siva Sadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So everyone is welcome to today's session. Today we shall be looking at lesson 4, which comprises of text 6, 7, and 8. This is we have finished text 5. So you should move to text 5, essence of text 5. We finished with text 5, the different categories of devotees: Kanista Adhikari, Madhyama Adhikari, and Uttama Adhikari. So you can shift the slides, I think, to the essence of text 4, unless you want us to just go through this, because text 3, 4, and 5, that is lesson 3. That's what we created last week. And Sanika Prabhu would ask, oh, he has moved.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Sorry,
Krishna. Yeah,
the gardener came to do the trimming of the grass.
okay.
So I just
have to
quickly
do it.
contacted him. Sorry.
No problem. So you move it to the text 5, the essence of text 5. We ended up at 5. So move down. Okay. The essence of verse 5. So we finished verse 5 last week. So just to recap some of the points we discussed. In order to intelligently apply the sixfold loving reciprocations mentioned in text 4, one must select proper persons with careful discrimination. The three kinds of devotees, Kanistha, Madhyama, and Uttama. The Kanistha Bhakta has received initiation, interested only in worshiping the deity, but does not know how to behave with the devotees. His faith is soft and pliable. Madhyama Bhakta, initiated, fully engaged in devotional service. Krishna is the object of love. He makes friends with the devotees. He is merciful to the innocent, avoids the envious, and his Shastic knowledge is strong, and he has a very staunch faith. Uttama Bhakta is the topmost devotee. His heart is clean, no interest in blaspheming others, eager to expand Krishna consciousness in order to bring many souls to Krishna and should be accepted as Guru. His association is desirable and he should be served. So that is the essence of the fifth verse or fifth text that we treated last week. It's like a summary of the verse 5. Verse 5 mainly discussed the three categories of Vaishnavas: the Kanistha Adhikari, the Madhyama Adhikari, and the Uttama Adhikari. And the definitions, or the summary of definitions, are given in this essence. So today we shall be moving on to text 6. Lesson 4 comprises of text 6, 7, and 8. So we shall be trying to see if we can finish this lesson 4 today and tomorrow. Then next week we can complete lesson 5, which is 9, 10, and 11. So anyway, so we can move on to text 6. Unless somebody has some comment or question, we can move on to text 6. Then the next slide will take us to text 6. Okay, so that's lesson 4. So lesson 4 begins with text 6. You have it on the screen. It says, Dristai Swabhava Janitai Vapusas Chadoshai Na Prakri Tatram Iha Bhakta Janasya Pasit Gangambasam Kalo Buddha Buddha Fina Pankai Brahma Dravatram Apagachati Niradharmai. The translation, which will be in the next slide, says, being situated in his original Krishna consciousness position, a pure devotee does not identify with the body. Such a devotee should not be seen from a materialistic point of view. Indeed, one should overlook a devotee having a body born in a low family, a body with a bad complexion, or deformed body, or disease, or infirm body. According to the ordinary vision, such imperfections may seem prominent in the body of a pure devotee. But despite such seeming defects, the body of a pure devotee cannot be polluted. It is exactly like the waters of the Ganges, which sometimes during the rainy season are full of bubbles, foam, and mud. The Ganges waters do not become polluted. Those who are advanced in spiritual understanding will bathe in the Ganges without considering the condition of the water. So, Rupa Goswami is moving on to further describe the position of the Uttama Adhikari. In the last text, we learned about the three categories of devotees or Vaishnavas. So in this verse, Rupa Goswami is advancing the position of an Uttama Adhikari. Now, in this, it says the position of the pure devotee of the Lord, being situated in his original Krishna consciousness. Okay, that's the translation. Yeah, that's the translation. So next slide. Okay, it says, a surrendered soul serves Krishna without material consideration. In this Krishna consciousness movement, one's consciousness must be changed. If consciousness is aimed toward material enjoyment, it is material consciousness. And if it is aimed towards serving Krishna, it is Krishna consciousness. A surrendered soul serves Krishna without any material considerations. Anyam Bilashita Sunyam, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.1.11. Jnana Karmanadi Anavritam, unalloyed devotional service, which is transcendental to the activities of the body and mind, such as Gyan, mental speculation, and karma, fruitful work, is called pure Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga is the proper activity of the soul. And when one actually engages in unalloyed, uncontaminated devotional service, he is already liberated. Sagunai Samatityaitime, Bhagavad Gita 14.26. Krishna's devotee is not subjected to material condition, even though his bodily features may appear materially conditioned. One should therefore not see a pure devotee from a materialistic point of view. Unless one is actually a devotee, he cannot see another devotee perfectly. So the Uttama Adhikari, we cannot see him with our conditioned eyes. Our material eyes can only see as much. We can only see material things. But it will fail to recognize a spiritually advanced person, especially the Uttama Adhikari. Because from a material point of view, we may still see that he has taken birth in a particular family, a particular tribe or race. He has certain bodily deformations. He has probably some habits, and so many things may be found to be wanting in his body or life. But here Rupa Goswami is telling us that all of these things that we may physically see in the body or even in the life of such an advanced devotee, we cannot judge, we cannot ascertain his level of advancement, because advancement is not based on the body. Advancement is based on the consciousness. And so here Srila Prabhupada is highlighting the importance of change of consciousness. The material situation may still be the same. The material body may still be the same. But the change of consciousness is what is most important. So, when one's activities are simply directed towards Krishna's pleasure, when one performs his activities devoid of sense pleasure, devoid of self-aggrandizement, then we should understand that that person is performing pure bhakti. And so we should not make any attempt to judge from our material point of view. So the example is Haridas Thakur. Haridas Thakur had taken birth in a Muslim family, a Melecha family. Muslims are meat eaters, so they are described as Melechas by the Vedic literatures. Anyone who is eating meat belongs to the Melecha family. So Haridas Thakur took birth in a Melecha family, and so judging from that angle, what authority does Haridas have? But he was a very exalted devotee. And then it is said that when Advaita Acharya was performing the Shraddha ceremony for his father, normally during the Shraddha ceremony, one has to offer the Mahaprasad plate to a qualified Brahmana. So all of these Smarta Brahmanas were all present in Advaita Acharya's house in Shantipur. And they were expecting that Advaita Acharya would nominate one of them as the winner of the Mahaprasad plate. It is an exalted position to nominate somebody amongst the Brahmana community and be honored with that Mahaprasad plate. So each and every Smarta Brahmana was thinking that Advaita Acharya will nominate me and give me the Mahaprasad plate. But around that time, Haridas Thakur had visited Advaita Acharya. And Advaita Acharya, being an exalted personality, he could understand the exalted position of Haridas Thakur. That's why they said here, that unless one is a great devotee, he cannot recognize other devotees, because we project our image on others. We project our understanding on others. What we think, that is what we project on others. But what we think may not be the absolute truth. What we think may not be the reality. But generally, the tendency is to project our understanding, our judgment on others. That's the general thing in this material world. So therefore, Advaita Acharya, being such an exalted person, he could immediately understand that Haridas Thakur was a very exalted person. So Advaita Acharya selected Haridas and honored him with the Mahaprasad plate. And the Smarta Brahmanas, they were very disturbed. And how can Advaita Acharya do this? This Haridas, he has not even taken birth in the what do you call it, a Vaishya family, a Kshatriya family, and here Advaita Acharya is honoring him with the Mahaplate. This is an insult to we, the Smarta Brahmanas. But Advaita Acharya, he argued, he said, feeding a Vaishnava, a pure Vaishnava, like Haridas, is as good as feeding 1 million Smarta Brahmanas. So I have to give it to him. And so even though the Smarta Brahmanas, they look down on Haridas because of his birth, his military birth, but Advaita Acharya being non-different from Vishnu, the Mahavishnu, he understood the heart, the consciousness of Haridas, and therefore he selected him as the honorable personality to honor the Mahaplate that was offered in the Shraddha ceremony. So Haridas Thakur took his birth in the Yavana Muslim family. But Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu made him the Nama Acharya. That's also important. So it's not the birth that matters, but it's the quality of our consciousness. Haridas was not born a Hindu. He was born a Yavana, a cow killer. I mean, the family he took his birth. But because of his advanced consciousness, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu made him the Nama Acharya, the teacher of the holy name. And Advaita Acharya offered the Mahaprasad plate to him. He distinguished him and honored him amongst hundreds of Smarta Brahmanas. So we have to understand that the quality of consciousness matters more than the external environment, the external body, the external circumstances that we can observe. So it's important that when it comes to dealing with your devotees, we should not project our understanding, our judgment on them, because we don't know their internal consciousness. And that is most important. That is what Krishna is looking at. Krishna is not concerned with our external situation. Krishna reciprocates with our internal consciousness. That's what Krishna is looking at. When Krishna went to Hastinapur as a messenger, Duryodhana, he was a king. Duryodhana arranged a very, very opulent banquet to receive Krishna. He was a king. He wanted to impress upon Krishna that I am the king, and therefore I have the capacity to host you at any level I want. So he made a big banquet, nice preparations, beautiful, wonderful things were arranged for Krishna's meal. But Krishna rejected Duryodhana's invitation. Krishna went to the house of Vidura. Vidura did not have much. In fact, they only had some banana in the house. That was the only thing Vidura had, banana. And when Krishna arrived in Vidura's house, Vidura's wife was so confused, because Krishna is an important personality, exalted personality. He has visited their home, and they had nothing to offer to Krishna except banana. So in that anxiety, Vidura's wife was peeling the banana, throwing away the banana, and placing the peels in Krishna's mouth. But Krishna did not object. Krishna began to enjoy the banana peels. So it is explained that actually Krishna is not hungry. Krishna is only hungry for our love. He's not hungry for food. After all, everything is emanating from him. So if everything is emanating from him, so what does he need? But he needs the devotee's love. So therefore, because Vidura's wife was offering the banana peels with such devotion, Krishna was enjoying the banana peels and not the banana. Meanwhile, Duryodhana had organized a very big banquet in a very special hall with the best cooks in Hastinapur, but Krishna wasn't interested. He didn't go there. He didn't look in that direction. So Krishna, his interest is not the external environment. Krishna's interest is the internal consciousness of the living entity. So, the exalted devotee, the Uttama Adhikari, his internal consciousness is so high. His consciousness is 10% thinking of Krishna, and Krishna is reciprocating with him so much. So therefore, we cannot judge the pure devotee by our standards. We have to see what is his consciousness. If we can understand his consciousness, then we can say something from that platform. Otherwise, we can misjudge him. The next slide, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu. So it says, overlooking the defects of the body of a pure devotee. No one should criticize the bodily defects of a pure devotee. If there are such defects, they should be overlooked. What should be taken into account is the spiritual master's main business, which is devotional service. Pure service to the Supreme Lord, as stated in Bhagavad Gita 9:30. Api chat sudacharo vajate ananyabak. Saduriva cha mattavya samyak vyavashito hi saha. Even if a devotee sometimes seems to engage in abominable activities, he should be considered a sadhu, a saintly person, because his actual identity is that of one engaged in loving service of the Lord. In other words, he is not to be considered an ordinary human being. So Krishna himself is speaking this verse in the 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, that sometimes a devotee may even seem to be deviating. He may engage in some abominable action, but he should not be condemned. He should still be considered a sadhu because he is properly situated, because he is connected to Krishna consciousness. So a temporary deviation does not change his position. A temporary deviation does not actually affect his relationship with Krishna. So we should not see the body of a devotee and make judgment based on what we are seeing, because the body situation could be very deceptive. So therefore, it is the consciousness. We should examine the consciousness. What are his activities? What is his state of consciousness? That is what is important. Next slide. So therefore, we have to overlook the defects of the body of the Uttama Adhikari. Next slide, Prabhuji. Sanika Prabhu, the next slide, okay. The Goswami title, A Monopoly of Pure Devotees. Even though a pure devotee may not be born in a Brahmana or Goswami family, if he is engaged in the service of the Lord, he should not be neglected. In actuality, there cannot be a family of Goswamis based on material considerations, caste, or heredity. The Goswami title is actually the monopoly of the pure devotees. Thus, we speak of the 6 Goswamis headed by Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami. Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami had practically become Mohammedans and had therefore changed their names to Dabira Kash and Sakara Malika. But Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself made them Goswamis. Therefore, the Goswami title is not hereditary. The word Goswami refers to one who can control his senses, who is a master of his senses. A devotee is not controlled by the senses, but is the controller of the senses. Consequently, he should be called Swami or Goswami, even though he may not be born in a Goswami family. So Srila Prabhupada is trying to give us the understanding that the title Goswami is not hereditary. It is not by birth. Prabhupada often gives the example that if your father is a lawyer or your father is a high court judge, it doesn't mean that the son is automatically a high court judge. No, you cannot go and sit on the high court bench and say, because my father is a judge in a high court, so I inherit that title. No, he has to go to a law school. He has to complete his law studies. He has to be called to the bar. He has to have experience in judging cases before he can now sit on the high court bench as a high court judge. Similarly, the son of a doctor, a medical officer, a surgeon, cannot say because his father is the best surgeon, he has also become a surgeon. He has no knowledge of surgery. He has no knowledge of medicine. So he cannot be accepted as a surgeon unless he goes to the medical school and for many years be trained by professional medical men, and then he is examined, graduated to become a medical man. So similarly, the title of Goswami is not just for the children of those born in a Goswami family. No, the title of a Goswami means one who has control over his senses, his mind, and his senses. So one who has that control can be called a Goswami. An example is given here that Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami, they were serving with the Muslim government, and because of that, their names were changed. Dabira Kash, that's Rupa Goswami's name, and Shakara Malika was Sanatana Goswami's name. They had actually become Muslims because they were associating with this Muslim king, Hussein Shah, Nawab Shah. So, but when they met Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Mahaprabhu changed their names. Mahaprabhu made them Goswamis and changed their names. So it's not a matter of birth. If it is a matter of birth, then Sanatana Goswami, Rupa Goswami, they should not be called Goswamis. But it's a matter of qualification. So therefore, no one family can own the title of Goswami. As we see in Vrindavan, all of the temples in Vrindavan, their family heads are Goswamis, even though you see them doing certain things that are not right. but because they're descendants of the Goswamis, automatically they consider themselves Goswamis. But a Goswami is a qualification. Goswami means exalted consciousness. So once you are called a Goswami, you must have exalted consciousness. So here, Prabhupada is giving us a clue that a devotee is not controlled by the senses, but is the controller of his senses. So anyone who can control his senses, he is called a Goswami. And from the very first verse of this Upadeshamrita, we understand the mission of Rupa Goswami. Rupa Goswami wants all of us to become Goswamis. So that is why he gave us the very first verse, talking about the 6 urges, that one who is able to control these 6 urges, he becomes a Goswami. So the whole purpose of studying the Upadeshamrita is to become a Goswami, is to control the mind, control the senses, and in this way, we can earn the titles of Goswami. Actually, that is Srila Prabhupada's desire. Srila Prabhupada said that the well is short of Brahmanas, the well is short of Goswamis, the well is short of devotees, pure devotees. So his mission is to create these Goswamis, to create these Brahmanas, to create first-class citizens who can control their minds, control their senses. So our mission is to create Goswamis, is to create Brahmanas. And so Rupa Goswami starts this journey with how to become a Goswami. Next slide. There is no room for jealousy in Krishna consciousness. On the other hand, a devotee who has attained the title of Goswami, but is not born of a Brahmana father or of a Goswami in the family of Nityananda or Advaita Prabhu, should not be artificially puffed up by thinking that he has become a Goswami. You should always remember that as soon as he becomes materially puffed up, he immediately falls down. This Krishna consciousness movement is a transcendental science, and there is no room for jealousy. This movement is meant for the Paramahamsas, who are completely free from all jealousy. Paramam Nimasharanam. One should not be jealous, whether he is born in a family of Goswamis or has the title of a Goswami awarded to him. As soon as anyone becomes envious, he falls from the platform of Paramahamsa. So, to become advanced in Krishna consciousness, this element of envy has to be eliminated. Actually, we are in this material world because of envy. We envied the glorious position of the Supreme Lord, and so we are given the opportunity to imitate him here in the material world. So that envy has to be given up if we have to return to the spiritual world. And even though we may not see Krishna, but we are seeing the devotees. So one may say, oh, for me, I don't envy Krishna. But if you still have some envy towards the devotee, it means the envy is still there. And that is why it is important to become Nirma Sharanam. Nirma Sharanam means one doesn't entertain any envy anymore. In the second verse of the first canto of the first chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is said, Dharma projita kaita vatra paramano nimasharanam shatam, that to qualify to understand the message of Srimad Bhagavatam, one has to be freed from the tendency of envy, the tendency of jealousy, because if that is still there in the heart, then it is difficult to understand Krishna, because that's the reason why we are here. The reason why we are cast out of the spiritual world is that subtle envy we had for Krishna, or towards Krishna. That's why we find ourselves in the material creation. And so, if we don't do away with this envy, we cannot return to the spiritual atmosphere. And even though but whatever attitude shall have towards Krishna. So therefore, if we have some envy towards the devotees, it means we still have that envious attitude toward Krishna. If we have envy towards any living entity, actually, it means we still have some enviousness towards the Supreme Lord, because every living entity is part and parcel. Every living entity is part and parcel of Krishna. So if we manifest any enviousness or jealousy towards any living entity, it goes back to Krishna. It goes all the way to Krishna, because every living entity is connected to Krishna. Therefore, we have to do away with envy. It's not very easy because of conditioning. We have been conditioned for many, many lives, envying one another. So it is a very difficult thing to do. It's very difficult to give up envy, but we must give it up if we want to become Krishna conscious. If we want to be favored by Krishna, then envy must be eschewed. Envy must be removed from our minds, from our lives. And then we can actually experience the bliss of Krishna consciousness. Even to study the scriptures, to study the Srimad Bhagavatam, one must become free from envy. If there is still some envy, Srimad Bhagavatam cannot penetrate the heart. If there is still some envy, the message of Srimad Bhagavatam will not penetrate our minds, because the envy or jealousy blocks it. It blocks it. So therefore, it is recommended that a devotee must always be appreciating others. That is the panacea. That is the solution. That is the medicine for overcoming envy. To glorify, to appreciate. If we learn to appreciate devotees, and we are always eager to appreciate devotees, then naturally the envy will go away. It's just the opposite. Learning to appreciate others is a sign of gratitude to Krishna, and one can easily overcome this envy and make progress on the path of bhakti. So that is is an important requirement on the path of bhakti. It may take us a whole life to actually overcome this envy, but it is necessary because that is the qualification for understanding Krishna. And that is the qualification for entering the spiritual world. The spiritual world is characterized by gratitude. It's characterized by appreciations. It's not characterized by jealousy and envy. No. So as soon as we manifest that, even in a very subtle way, not a gross way, but immediately we become qualified to live in the material world, we become residents of the material world. So in order to go back, we must do away with envy. So, and to do away with envy means that we must always be appreciative of devotees. We should look for the tiny, tiny good qualities of devotees and expand them. In material life, people rather look for tiny, tiny faults and expand them. That is material life. They look for the tiny, tiny faults and they expand that. It's like the moon. On the moon, you always see some black spot. You can never see the moon without a black spot. But despite the fact that there is a black spot in the moon is still providing light. So why don't you enjoy the light? Why are you pointing at the black spot on the moon? So that is what it means to find fault, to become envious of others. Instead of seeing the good qualities of others, we jump at the bad qualities. And even if there are thousands of good qualities, we can only see the bad qualities. Now, it is said that one time, one disciple of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada, Prabhupada's godbrother, went to the Guru to complain about one particular devotee. He was complaining so much. This devotee is like this devotee is like that devotee is like that. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta asked him, well, I've heard, but this devotee you're talking about, doesn't he have any single quality? And so he had to crack his mind to come out with one quality. He said, well, he leads Kirtan very nicely. Mr. Bhaktisiddhanta says, yes. Why are you not glorifying that? Even if he's so bad in every aspect, but he is a good Kirtan leader. So why don't you expand that, glorify that, always see him in that light, instead of just pointing all the faults he has. And so that incident teaches us how to relate to devotees. You cannot find a person in this world who is completely free of all faults. You can find. And if we wear the glasses of fault finders, we'll always find fault. But for a Vaishnava who wants to return to the spiritual world, fault finding business is not recommended. Law finding business is recommended. You should appreciate devotees. Of course, if a devotee does something wrong and you want to correct him, you can correct him, but you should do it in a way that he will take it. So normally in our process of correction, it is said that first you say something good about a devotee. Before you bring up the mistake or before you make the correction, you first appreciate him. And when you appreciate him, he would see that you're not just finding fault. He will see that you're not just trying to pin him down. You will see that you appreciate something of him before you bring out his mistake. Then he will take it. So it is called the sandwich method. Sandwich method means below there is bread, on top there is bread, in between is the sauce, the salsa. Your whatever you put there, the vegetables, the tomatoes, whatever you put in between. So When you want to correct somebody, you say something nice about him. That is the bottom of the bread. And then you now bring out the fault. That is the middle. That's the saucer. And then again, you say something good about him. That's the top of the bread. And so if you do like this, the fellow would feel obliged to listen to your correction. But very often we just jump on the person's mistake. We just jump on the person's fault without even saying anything good about the person. And so we don't achieve what we want to achieve. The fellow immediately starts feeling negative about us. He starts feeling that this person is finding fault with me. So why should I listen to him? So to deal with this envy, we have to always appreciate devotees. That is the solution to giving up envy. Next slide, Prabhu. Unless somebody has some question, we go to the next slide.
Yeah, Hare Krishna, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna, Anandini Nidanam, Prabhu.
Thank you very much. So, this envy that we are talking about, can we employ it in devotional service? Since everything material can be employed in devotional service, so I would like to know how can we employ this envy in devotional service? Since giving it up is very difficult, how then can we employ it in devotional service?
Well,
Okay.
the Prabhupada says that in the spiritual world, they overcome envy by promoting each other. In other words, when you see somebody doing something nice, you don't begin to think, oh, he's doing better than me. Let me bring him down. We should be thinking, oh, he's such a good example. Let me help him to do more. And by trying to help him, Krishna will also help us. So he says, the gopis, they always promoting Radharani. They know that Krishna loves Radharani more than them. But instead of them becoming envious, they think, oh, if we promote Radharani, if we bring Krishna and Radharani together more and more, then we may also get some mercy of Krishna. So instead of trying to become envious, we should always think of how to help others to make progress. That is the way of killing envy. At the back of our minds, we should always be positive. How can I help this person to make progress? How can I help him to become more Krishna conscious? How can I help him to love Krishna more and more? If we think like this and act like this, then the envy will go away. There is, as far as I'm concerned, I don't see how we can engage envy in a very positive way. Envy is a negative element. It's not like anger. Anger can be used. There are certain traits that can be used. Anger can be used to defend the devotee, to defend the Lord. If a devotee is attacked, one should become angry and attack the attacker of the devotee. So anger can be used. But in the case of envy, it is a very abominable character. And as I said, that is the cause of our material existence. So the only way to give up envy is to act the other way around, to always try to help others, try to encourage others, try to appreciate others, try to give credit to others. That is a way we can deal with envy. Otherwise, it increases unlimitedly. As soon as we get a chance to attack somebody, to criticize somebody, it just increases. There is no end to it. So the better way is to always appreciate, to always give credit, to always glorify devotees. That's the way to deal with envy in Krishna consciousness. Unless you have a way, do you have a way to apply envy in Krishna consciousness? Let me have some idea.
See, I don't know, that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, any other comments? And then we'll move on. So we go to the next verse and the next slide. Committing offenses at the holy feet of Vaishnavas is very dangerous. If we consider the bodily defects of a Vaishnava, we should understand that we are committing an offense at the lotus feet of the Vaishnava. An offense at the lotus feet of a Vaishnava is very serious. Indeed, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has described this offense as Hatimata, the mad elephant offense. A mad elephant can create disaster, especially when it enters into a nicely trimmed garden. One should therefore be very careful not to commit any offense against a Vaishnava. So, if we judge a Vaishnava from the externals, from the color of his body, from the nature of his body, from the effects of his body, then we are committing Vaishnava aparat. And by doing that, we deprive ourselves of the mercy of Krishna. Actually, the word aparat is a two word, apa rada, apa and rada. Apa rada means without the mercy of Radha. When you commit an offense against the devotee, immediately you deprive yourself of the mercy of Radha. And that's why it's called aparada, apa rada. No mercy from Radharani. That's what it means when we commit an offense. So therefore, in our association, in our dealings with devotees, it is very crucial that one gives up this tendency to criticize, tendency to insult, tendency to condemn, because all of these actions will lead to Vaishnava aparada, will lead to missing out the mercy of Srimati Radharani. There is an interesting story. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu visited Bengal, it's called Brahma. After the place where Mahaprabhu took the sannyas, what do they call that place? Across the Ganga. It's not Srikant. There's Srikant, there's Kuligrama, there is where Mahaprabhu took Keshava Bharati's home, where Mahaprabhu took sannyas. It's called, the name comes and goes. It's called what is this? Okay, it will come up. So there are a series of villages that you can find this Kuligrama. So Mahaprabhu, when he visited Bengal, he came to this place called Kuligrama, and the news spread that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had arrived in Kuligrama. And so hundreds of thousands of people came to see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So there was one devotee. He approached Lord Chaitanya and he confessed. He told Lord Chaitanya that I am an offender to the Vaishnavas. So what should I do? How can I rectify my situation? And Lord Chaitanya told him, Suna duija visha kari ye muke bakshanaha. Se muke kari yabe amrita grahanaha. He says, Mahaprabhu said, oh, listen, my dear Brahmana, one who has taken poison must drink nectar with the same mouth. Then the effect of the poison will be neutralized. And by the influence of the nectar, his body will become immortal. This is found in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, Antya Kant, chapter 3, verse 449. So this Brahmana devotee approached Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and confessed to him that he had been an offender and a parody of the devotees. And so he was seeking Lord Chaitanya's advice, how he could deal with this issue of his finding fault or criticizing or offending devotees. And Lord Chaitanya told him that offending devotees is like drinking poison. Visha means poison. Suni duija visha. If you drink poison, it means you want to die. You don't drink poison and survive. So if you criticize devotees, if you blaspheme devotees, if you commit a para to devotees, then it's like drinking poison. And so your spiritual death is certain. If you just keep committing such offenses, your spiritual death is sure, because you are taking poison every time when you criticize and offend the devotees. So Mahaprabhu told him that if you have drunk some poison, the solution is to drink some nectar. And how do you drink nectar? It means you glorify the devotees. So to drink nectar means to speak good about the devotees. To drink nectar means to appreciate the devotees. So that is the solution. And we drink some poison, we have to drink an antidote. And that antidote is speaking well about a devotee, glorifying a devotee, appreciating the devotee. So otherwise, the offense is to a Vaishnava is described as hatimata. Hatimata, mad elephant offense. And we see even in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's life, when Mahaprabhu was giving benedictions to all the devotees in the home of Srivas Pandit, he did not give benediction to his mother. So the devotees were very worried. And they pleaded with Mahaprabhu, why are you giving benedictions to everyone except your own mother who brought you into this world? And Mahaprabhu said, because she's an offender to Vaishnavas, she's not entitled to my mercy. She's not entitled to my benedictions. I won't give it to her. So despite many exalted devotees coming to Mahaprabhu to beg that at least, even if your mother has committed an offense, you should forgive her and give her a benediction. And Mahaprabhu said, no, I would not. So he said she should go. And what is the offense? The offense is not even a gross offense, because Advaita Acharya's house was close to a yoga pit, Jagannath Mishra's house in yoga pit. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's senior brother, Vishwarup, was always associating with Advaita Acharya. Advaita Acharya used to read Srimad Bhagavatam. He used to discuss the scriptures every day. And so Vishwarup, at a very young age, became attracted to Advaita Acharya. So every day he would go there to listen to the discussions on scripture. In fact, it is said that every day Sachimata had to send Gauranga Mahaprabhu Nimai Pandit to go to Advaita Acharya's house to bring Vishwarup to the house to eat. If they don't go and call him to come and eat, he will just be listening to, he'll be drinking the nectar of Advaita Acharya's discussion. And because of that discussion, at the age of 12, Vishwarup left home and took sannyas. So when a mother loses a child, loses a son, she's not happy. So when Sachimata understood that his elder son, Vishwarup, had left home and taken sannyas at such a young age, at the age of 12, she considered that it was due to the influence of Advaita Acharya. That because Advaita Acharya had been discussing philosophy, discussing the scriptures with his young boy, he has made him renounce the world and gone to take sannyas. So Sachimata was not happy with Advaita Acharya for that. Then Nimai Pandit also started associating with Advaita Acharya, because when he used to go and call his brother, he would hear the sweet discussions of the scriptures. And he was also inclined to hearing those sweet discussions. So when his brother left to take sannyas, Nimai Pandit also began to associate with Advaita Acharya. And this even inflamed the anger of Madhasachi. He said, this Advaita Gosai, they say he's a great person, but look at what he's doing. He's ruining my family. He has made my first boy to take sannyas at a very early age. You, Advaita Acharya, you are a very old man. You haven't taken sannyas, and you are making my little boy, 12-year-old boy, to take sannyas. What kind of sadhu are you? And now, the first one is gone. You are talking to the second one. So I can't take it. I can't take it. So because of this, Sachimata was not happy with Advaita Acharya. And Lord Chaitanya was not happy with Sachimata. Sachimata was not happy with Advaita Acharya because he had induced his first son to take sannyas, and now he is also preaching to his second son, who may also take sannyas. So Sachimata was not happy. Advaita Acharya is a very bad man. He's making all my children to renounce home. This is not good. So he wasn't happy with such Advaita Acharya. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, being the super soul, he understood everything. He also was not happy with the mother because the mother was not happy with Advaita Acharya. So when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was offering benedictions to all the devotees in Mayapur, the mother was sitting outside and Mahaprabhu did not call her. So devotees approached him and said, Mahaprabhu, Nimai Pandit, your mother is sitting outside. Please give her some benediction. And Mahaprabhu said, never. So long as it's an offender of a great Vaishnava, she doesn't qualify for my mercy. And so she refused. He refused to give the mother mercy. But then one day, out of ecstasy, and there was some joking, some exchange between Lord Nityananda and Advaita Acharya. Actually, Advaita Acharya and Nityananda, they always engage in mock fighting. They always criticize each other. This one will say this one will say that. This one will say, this old man, he's always talking some philosophy. And then Advaita Acharya will tell Nityananda, you don't even know your gotra. We don't even know where you come from. You're a wanderer. What do you want here? So they always exchange some jokes like that. So one day they were in that joking mood and they started throwing rice at each other, and Advaita fell into ecstasy. He fell unconscious on the ground. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told the mother, now is the chance to rectify your offense. Of course, such a matter had gone to apologize to Adwaita Acharya. Adwaita Acharya says, you have not offended me. I don't see why you're apologizing to me. You have not offended me, so don't apologize. So she was in a very precarious situation. Mahaprabhu says he has offended Adwaita Acharya. Adwaita Acharya says he has not offended him. So when Adwaita Acharya fell into ecstasy, Mahaprabhu told the mother, quick, this is the time to rectify your offense. Go and grab the feet of Adwaita Acharya and touch your head. Now that he's unconscious, because when he's conscious, he will not allow you. But now he's in ecstasy. Go and grab his lotus feet and place it on your head. Then you'll be free from that offense. So immediately, such a matter, obeying the order of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, she dashed to the spot where Adwaita Acharya was lying unconscious and placed her head on the lotus feet of Adwaita Acharya. And then he was freed from that offense. And then only then that Mahaprabhu gave her a benediction. So that is described as a mad elephant offense. When we offend a devotee, we have introduced an elephant, a mad elephant in our garden of bhakti. They said that Bhakti Lata Beach, the seed of devotion that is planted at the time of initiation, when we take our vows from the spiritual master, when we take our bead, at that time, the seed of devotion is planted in the heart of the living entity. And by our daily chanting, by our sadhanas, we are nourishing that seed of bhakti, that Bhakti Lata Beach. If we allow a mad elephant to enter the garden or the courtyard of our heart through offenses, that elephant will destroy that Bhakti Lata Beach. And so that is why Mahaprabhu calls it Hati Mata, mad elephant offense to commit against a devotee. So we have to be careful that if we want to become first-class Vaishnavas, if we want to become advanced in Krishna consciousness, then we should learn to glorify devotees, to appreciate devotees, to show gratitude to devotees, instead of always being on the other side, or always finding some fault, always criticizing, and so on and so forth. When we do that, we deprive ourselves of the mercy of Srimati Radharani, and that is why it is called aparada, aparada. We can go to the next slide, Prabhu. Time is not waiting for us. It's already 11 o'clock.
Madam Maharaj? Okay, yeah, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. You want to ask some questions?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
So, talking about criticism, if truly what the person does is what actually you base your point on, that be considered an offense. Because since, you've stolen an item, and I'm talking point blank that, you were the one who stolen a particular item. And at some point, that is true. So can we consider that as a criticism? I don't know if my question is clear.
Well, I think I understand it. If a devotee does something which is untoward, unacceptable, we have the right to point it out to him. We have the right. But we must know how to do it. You see, to correct somebody, you must have a relationship with the person. If you don't have a relationship with the person, he might not take your correction. Like A father correcting a child, there's a relationship. A mother correcting a child, there's a relationship. A teacher correcting a student, there's a relationship. Guru correcting a disciple, there's a relationship. But where there is no relationship, it is very difficult because the first impression is that you are trying to belittle him, even though he might be wrong. But as soon as he says something, he will think this fellow wants to belittle me. That's why he's bringing all this up. So the principle in correcting people is that you must have relationship with the person. That's the first principle. You must have some relationship. Then he will take the correction in good heart. The second principle is that you should say something positive about him. Don't just jump on the mistake. So if you say something positive, you say, Prabhu, I like your kirtans, I like your classes, I like your serving of Prashadam, I like your this, but there is something that I don't like. There's something you're doing wrong that is affecting others. So please take note and correct it. So if you have a relationship with a person, it's easy to correct him. But if you have no relationship, it's difficult. And that is why we have to employ the second step, the second method of first of all, appreciating the devotee before you bring up his mistake or his deviation or whatever you have observed. And then after that, say another good thing. So that's why I mentioned the sandwich method. You say one good thing, you bring out the bad, and you say another good thing. So he will see that you are not just finding fault. You are a well-wisher. You are a well-wisher because you are not pointing out all his mistakes, but you are also saying something good about him. So an intelligent person will see that you are not an enemy. You are not just to, ridicule him. You're not to bring him down. You are really a well-wisher, and so he will take it. So the approach, correcting people, is part of life. But many a time we use the wrong approach and we don't achieve what we want to achieve. So the approach is very important. Of course, if the fellow is senior to you, then you have to find somebody of his level to correct him. You cannot just walk up to your senior and tell him anything. No. Your father, you can't correct your father. If your father does something wrong, as a son, you go to your uncle or you go to your mom and you tell your mom or your uncle that this is what father did you don't like, and then they will correct him. But if you want to correct your father, it's just going to create more problems like that. So similarly, in our Vaishnava relationship, if a senior devotee does something you think is wrong, then as a junior, if you approach him trying to correct him, it will simply backfire. It will create more problems. So you approach somebody of his same status, same level with him, maybe a friend to him, and then you make a complaint, and then he can now take the matter to that level. So the approach is always the issue. We can correct, but we should know how to correct so that the purpose of correction is achieved. And we correct somebody only to spoil our relationship, and we correct somebody only to make him angry with us, and we correct somebody only to spoil the situation, then what is the use of that correction? So we must do it nicely so that we can achieve the goal for which we are working, we are acting. Is that okay?
Yes, Maharaj. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Okay, so let's move on, Prabhu. Salika Prabhu, let's move on to the next slide. Okay, we already saw this on the next one. Observing the activities of a pure Vaishnava from a material point of view. Every devotee should be ready to take instructions from a superior Vaishnava. And a superior Vaishnava must be ready to help an inferior Vaishnava in all respects. One is superior or inferior according to his spiritual development in Krishna consciousness. One is forbidden to observe the activities of a pure Vaishnava from a material point of view. For the neophyte especially, considering a pure devotee from a material point of view is very injurious. One should therefore avoid observing a pure devotee externally, but should try to see the internal features and understand how he is engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. In this way, one can avoid seeing the pure devotee from a material point of view, and thus one can gradually become purified. One can gradually become a purified devotee himself. So, I think we already touched upon this, that it is forbidden to observe the activities of a pure devotee, pure Vaishnava, from a material point of view. For the neophyte, especially considering a pure devotee from a material point of view, is very injurious. One should therefore avoid observing a pure devotee externally, but should try to see the internal features and understand how he is engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. I think that the point here is we should not pass judgment on exalted devotees because we don't understand their internal consciousness. We don't understand what they are thinking about. We don't understand their love, how much love they have for Krishna, how much affection they have for Krishna. So based on the degree of affection for Krishna, to that degree, we commit an offense. To that degree, the offense becomes severe. If somebody is a first-class devotee and we commit an offense, it becomes very serious. But if the fellow is not a first-class devotee and we commit an offense, offense is there, but it's not so severe. So, what do you call it? Shobari Muni committing an offense at the lotus feet of Garuda. When Garuda went to pick some fish in the Yamuna River, Shobari Muni warned Garuda that if he comes here again, he will curse him. And just by speaking like that to Garuda, Garuda is a superior Vaishnava to Shobari Muni. Garuda is a topmost devotee of Lord Vishnu. Garuda carries Lord Vishnu on his shoulders and flies him everywhere, both spiritual and material worlds. So Shobari Muni was completely unqualified to warn Garuda and curse him. And so because of that, he fell down from his spiritual practices. He saw some fishes mating, and that immediately affected his consciousness. He lost control of his senses, and he emerged from the waters of the Yamuna looking for a wife. And he ended up marrying 50 daughters of King Mandudatta. So when a junior or an inferior Vaishnava criticizes a superior Vaishnava, he actually endangers his life. And so it's advised here that a neophyte devotee should be careful not to endanger his spiritual life. Next slide. Krishna consciousness is not limited to a section of human society or a tract of land. Those who think that Krishna consciousness is limited to a certain section of people, a certain section of devotees, or a certain tract of land are generally prone to see the external features of the devotee. Such neophytes, unable to appreciate the exalted service of the advanced devotee, try to bring the Mahabhagavat to their platform. We experience such difficulty in propagating this Krishna consciousness all over the world. Unfortunately, we are surrounded by neophyte God brothers who do not appreciate the extraordinary activities of spreading Krishna consciousness all over the world. They simply try to bring us to their platform, and they try to criticize us in every respect. We very much regret their naive activities and poor fund of knowledge. An empowered person who is actually engaged in the confidential service of the Lord should not be treated as an ordinary human being. For it is stated that unless one is empowered by Krishna, one cannot spread the Krishna consciousness movement all over the world. So Prabhupada is giving his own personal example here. You know, when he started the preaching, his God brothers were criticizing him for doing that or for not doing that, like that. So Prabhupada is making that comment here. Unfortunately, we are surrounded by neophyte God brothers who do not appreciate the extraordinary activities of spreading Krishna consciousness all over the whole world. And they simply try to bring us to their platform, and they try to criticize us in every respect. So, it's due to neophyte consciousness that we are inclined to criticize. As our consciousness become more and more spiritualized, we would naturally want to appreciate devotees more and more. In fact, it is said that one can judge his own progress in Krishna consciousness by looking at these two factors. How much do I appreciate others? And how much do I criticize others? These two factors can always tell our level of consciousness. One whose consciousness is low will always criticize others. And one whose consciousness is high will always appreciate others. So we can set a barometer for ourselves. We can measure our own progress, our own advancement by seeing where we are more inclined to, whether we are inclined to criticizing, finding fault with others, or we are inclined to appreciating and glorifying others. So for a neophyte devotee, he doesn't see anything wrong with criticizing others. But for an advanced devotee, he knows that even though he is on a very advanced platform, but if he criticizes others, it can lead to his fall down, like the case of Shobhari Muni. Shobhari Muni was a great yogi. He had performed meditation for 50 years under the water of the Yamuna. But when he criticized a superior Vaishnava, he immediately fell down. So this should serve as a hint. It should serve as a warning that we have to be very careful that we don't become addicted to fault finding. Srila Prabhupada gives the analogy of the fly and the bee. The bee is always looking for honey. Any flower the bee approaches is looking for nectar. That is the quality of the bee, is in the mode of goodness. The fly is always looking for pus. So even if there are 100 good things around, the fly doesn't go there. he will go straight to the saw because he wants to suck pus. See, so a devotee must be like the bee, always looking for honey, looking for the nectar in other devotees who are like flowers. So Srila Prabhupada was doing such heavy preaching, such important preaching, establishing Krishna consciousness throughout the world. But his neophyte God brothers, they sat in India and they were just criticizing him. They were saying all kinds of things against him. So this is not right, because one who is empowered to preach, an empowered preacher, is very exalted. Unless someone is empowered, he cannot preach, he cannot spread Krishna consciousness. So therefore, one has to honor those who are empowered to do such special service. The next point, the next slide. Next slide, Prabhu. Next slide. It is an offense to consider an empowered Vaishnava an object of disciplinary action. When one does criticize a pure devotee, he commits an offense, Vaishnava aparad, that is very obstructive and dangerous for those who desire to advance in Krishna consciousness. A person cannot derive any spiritual benefits when he offends the lotus feet of Vaishnavas. Everyone should therefore be very careful not to be jealous of an empowered Vaishnava or a Shuddha Vaishnava. It is also an offense to consider an empowered Vaishnava an object of disciplinary action. It is offensive to try to give him advice or correct him. One can distinguish between a neophyte Vaishnava and an advanced Vaishnava by their activities. The advanced Vaishnava is always situated as the spiritual master, and the neophyte is always considered his disciple. The spiritual master must not be subjected to the advice of a disciple, nor should a spiritual master be obliged to take instructions from those who are not his disciples. This is the sum and substance of Srila Rupa Goswami's advice in the 6th verse. So, the exalted devotee cannot be an object of disciplinary action. No, because of his exalted position, if we take any disciplinary action on him, we are jeopardizing our own spiritual life, because a superior Vaishnava, if we find some fault with him, if there is some deviation, then we have to also approach another superior Vaishnava of the same caliber who can deal with the matter. But if we don't do that and we think we can correct the situation, we will simply jeopardize our spiritual progress. We will endanger our spiritual life. So the advanced Vaishnava is always situated as a spiritual master, and the neophyte is always considered his disciple. And the spiritual master must not be subjected to the advice of a disciple, nor should a spiritual master be obliged to take instructions from those who are not his disciples. So, according to the Vaishnava etiquette, the disciple cannot advise the spiritual master. Neither can the non-disciples give instructions to the spiritual master. So these things are part of the Vaishnava etiquette. We can make some suggestions, and we see that Srila Prabhupada, he often sought the advice of his disciples, especially some few disciples whom he considered very intelligent, very experienced. Srila Prabhupada would always seek their advice, like Tamal Krishna Goswami, like Sasaru Maharaj, like Kitananda Swami, and so on. Srila Prabhupada, when he takes a decision, he will ask their opinion. And so, even though the spiritual master may ask your opinion, it doesn't mean that if you give your suggestion, then the spiritual master is obliged to accept that suggestion. No. You give your suggestion and you become detached from that suggestion. If he takes it, all well and good. If he doesn't take it, all well and good. So that is the point the Prabhupada is pointing out here, that the relationship between guru and disciple is a sacred relationship. And so, in order to honor that sacred relationship, one must be careful how he deals with the spiritual master. A spiritual master is not an ordinary person. He represents Krishna. Once he's put in that position, representing Krishna, then it means he's Krishna's ambassador. He's an ambassador. And an ambassador is representing a whole country. And he has the interest of the country. And so anything you want to do with that country, you have to go through the ambassador of that country. So similarly, the spiritual master is a representative of Krishna. He's an ambassador of Krishna to connect the disciple to Krishna. And therefore, he should not be subject to our criticism, subject to our advice, subject to our decisions. No, that constitutes an apparat, and that would jeopardize our spiritual progress. Next slide. I think that's the last slide for this verse. Next slide, Sanika Prabhu. Okay. Warning against offensive materialistic mindset and behavior. So it says, say no to criticism of bodily defects of a Vaishnava. Say no to criticism or neglect because of birth. Say no to criticism of apparent misbehavior. Say no to materialistic vision. Say no to mistreatment of an empowered devotee. And say no to attempts to discipline or advise or correct an empowered devotee. So these are the concluding words of this verse, that in order not to find ourselves in a precarious situation, a difficult situation, then we have to say no to criticisms of bodily defects of Vaishnavas. We have to say no to criticisms or neglect because of birth. We have to say no to criticisms of apparent misbehavior. We have to say no to our materialistic vision. We have to say no to mistreatment of empowered devotees. And we have to say no to attempts to discipline, advise, or correct an empowered devotee. So I think that is the last slide of text 5, or text 6, sorry. Let's see the next slide. Okay, so that's the last slide. This is text 7. So I think if there are any comments or questions, they are welcome, because our time is already up. And tomorrow we continue with text 7 and probably text 8. So any comments or questions? If there are no comments, then we call it a day. And then tomorrow we'll see how far we can go, whether we can finish the 2 verses tomorrow, so that we close lesson 4. Then we have lesson 5 for next week. But if we can finish, we'll see what to do. Okay, so thank you very much.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Yeah, Hare Krishna.
Yeah, so all the devotees to please kindly unmute, loudly chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra to appreciate His Grace Srivas Vanachari for taking his time to give us this. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Hare
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare Hare,
Ram,
Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Rama, Hare Hare.
Vanchakarpatarubhyascha kripasubhyascha
Panitanam Pavinibhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo.
Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinde ki jai. Grace Srivas
Prabhupada ki
jai. Gura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai.
Jai.